truth. And that is what we see going on right now in our country. This is the way it works. Violence is always the resort of radical revolutionaries. It always has been. Organized violence is the pursuit of political goals by other means. It may not always rise to the level of out-and-out war. It can be warfare on a different level, warfare of intimidation, warfare of restricting freedom of speech and the flow of information. There's all kinds of things that can be done, and that's exactly what is happening right today. You have a president who just said that if the Supreme Court disallows Roe versus Wade, then the decision would go back to the states. And he said, we cannot leave this right of abortion up to the whims of the citizenry. In other words, we can't allow the people to decide this. We can't allow people to vote on it. That is nothing but totalitarianism. That's all this is. If we can't control the decision makers, then we're going to intimidate them so that they will be forced to do what we think they should do. These people have not been successful in winning the confidence of the citizenry of our country. You do that by exercising faithful rule, and the fruits of your governance are obvious and seen. But they have been an incalculable disaster throughout the year and a half they've been in power. The Biden administration has been the most destructive administration in the history of our country in a year and a half. And they're not finished. They're just getting started. And I guess we should all write thank you notes to all the Christians who said that they couldn't vote for Trump because that would be a horrible thing to do. This is astonishing. They have been successful. They have not been successful in persuading the people of their position by their arguments. Indeed, they've alienated the vast majority of the population by their insane positions and their insistence that we ignore reality on every level, whether it's what produces inflation, what are good economic policies, or what is something that kindergartners should learn. And asking the questions and making sure that all our kindergartners are confronted with critical race theory and gender theory. They cannot possibly be elected in a fair election. And so they have to resort to other means to attempt to retain their power. And they have chosen intimidation, violence, coercion, coupled with massive voter fraud and a rigged election. This is what is happening, and this is what happens when you allow revolutionaries to play their games and go along with them and are intimidated by them. It's a dreadful place to be. But this is what happens when you have a generation of Christians who have been reared on emotionalism and sentimentalism rather than the Bible. This is what happens when Christians refuse to worship God faithfully and learn how to live. This is what happens when Christians refuse to give themselves to obeying God's word and understanding it and being serious about grasping the theology and the teachings of the scriptures. Most Christians cannot find the book of Habakkuk, much less do they think it's in the Bible. They don't know what it talks about. They don't know where it is. If it wasn't for a table of contents, they would never find it. That's how ignorant we are of the Bible. We don't know the most basic things. And so you end up supporting things that are completely satanic. This is what happens. And we have to learn that God doesn't bless those who care more about their popularity and respectability and their own prosperity than they do about faithfulness and bringing glory to Him. If we don't learn that, we will be wiped off the face of the earth, and good riddance. There's no need for a church that doesn't care about the glory of God and living for His honor and having the integrity of standing where the Bible tells us to stand. If we won't do that, then we are wasting resources that can be used by someone who will be faithful to stand against the modern satanic revolution that's going on around us. This is not new, though, and that's what I want to emphasize. This is something that has gone on in our country for quite a long while, at lesser or greater speeds and at lesser or greater popularity, but it's not altogether new.